Hi there. Welcome to Shredded Cels episode 3. We are Tech Heads podcast. Tech Heads is a student organization part of AVW Productions here at Ohio University. I'm your host, Alex Schmitz, and today I'm joined by Jeremy Zajac.
Yay!
Matt Lunn.
You're a crazy otaku nerd.
And our new guest for this week, Amy Brighter.
What's up, Internet? Woo!
Very nice. Stealing from other podcasts.
Yes,
it's lovely.
This is what I do best.
Yes, Amy is new on the podcast, and she is actually our producer here at TechHead, so she's basically our boss.
Exactly. So you guys get to do what I say for this podcast. We're going to start off with... No, I'm kidding. I'll let you run it, Alex.
Well, since you're new, Amy, when we introduced ourselves, we talked about like how we got into anime, so why don't you tell us your story?
I wouldn't say I'm an avid anime person. I've watched a handful of Studio Ghibli films, and that's probably been the most of my exposure. Manga-wise, actually, I had my best friend when I was in like elementary school was really into manga, and so she decided that for a couple of my birthdays and like Christmas and stuff, she was just going to get me a bunch of various manga books.
What titles did you read back then?
She got me More Starlight to Your Heart.
Never heard of it. How was that?
It was interesting. I only read the first 2 books. Okay. So
remind me, I'll take that note. I'll look
it was good. It was set in feudal Japan. Okay. And kind of interesting court intrigue, kind of romance kind of thing. Very girly. I also read Amazing Agent Luna, which is basically about this, she's, genetically engineered super secret agent, master, grew up in a military lab kind of person, so she's completely socially inept and gets thrown into high school because she's the only person who can blend in that situation.
I'll have to check these titles out.
Yeah, and the other one was called Desert Coral, which is basically about this boy who, when he falls asleep, he ends up in this other world. So he gets to the point where he just falls asleep for the sake of being part of this other world. This other world becomes more real to him than his waking life. And he meets these people who, they're like summoners, I guess is the official term. And they're kind of like the low lifes of this other area. They live in the slums and they just battle it out.
Okay.
All right. Very cool. Well, we're going to jump into a real quick news segment because there were actually some interesting things that have happened since we recorded last. It's been about 3 weeks now, I believe. But earlier this month, Viz Media released their new online manga service called Shonen Jump Alpha, which is essentially a service where you pay $26 and you get, I believe it's 6 different manga every week, 2 weeks behind the Japanese release, which has some people upset. But for $26, you get a year's worth of digital manga, and it's much more up to date than they have been in the past.
Which you are a purchaser.
Yes, I did. I put the money in to purchase it, so I'm supporting the legal service. I feel good about myself. What do you guys think? Is this a good move for Viz Media, moving into the digital realm?
As far as the digital realm, I'm still always going to want to buy a book. I mean, I'm going to be that crazy guy who's going to eventually want to buy every single little tankobon of One Piece and put that on his collection. Yeah. Just something about holding a physical medium book, no matter what you can do with a Kindle or anything, holding it there and saying, "This is mine." Yeah. And being able to give it to people to say, "Here, read this," and show other people towards, this wonderful thing I love. That's my passion. I don't know what else to say.
It also gives to the trading of manga, because I remember in high school I had a couple friends lend me copies of Fruits Basket.
Oh, Fruits
So
Basket.
I've read the first couple volumes of that. I did not get very far because I think what happened was that we were trading it among our circle of friends, and I got to a point where I was waiting on one of the books and never got any further.
That's such a good.
I know.
I never finished it. That's one of the titles that I would love to purchase, but because Tokyo Pop's now out of business, it's kind of in the
It's hard
area.
to find.
Yes, it's hard to find. So hopefully it'll get repicked up by maybe Dark Horse or... probably Dark Horse. I can see them doing that.
All right, very good. And you, Matt, know about this Bleach anime getting canceled.
Oh, yes. just thank the world. Thank the people who decided this is no longer going to be on TV. I'm thrilled.
So you don't think they're going to pull in Inuyasha?
Oh, they are definitely going to pull an Inuyasha final act because they're not getting good ratings right now. So what they're going to do is they're going to back off, and then you know what's going to happen in a few months down the road once the final story arc, they're going to hype it back up, and then they're going to put this new thing saying it's even better than before. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to pull an Inuyasha.
All right. And related with that, you mentioned the manga. Recently, the Bleach manga just got onto this new arc. I've been starting to read it, and it says right on the front page, final arc, big 1,000-year war or something
Quote,
like
unquote,
that.
says
No,
Jeremy.
Yeah, no one can see me, but I'm air quoting right now. I never believe that when I see it.
Well, if it is a final arc, it's probably most likely going to take like a year, or it's not going to, just because it's a final arc doesn't mean it's going to be real quick. It'll probably be really long and drawn out, and it's probably going to be little mini arcs in it too, and it's
Each individual battle will take 3 months to get through.
exactly.
There'll be no text in the entire, at least one of them either. It'll just be nothing but splash pages the whole time.
The beginning of Bleach with the Soul Society arc, the very beginning, the first 63 episodes of the anime, that was good. That was legitimate quality of anime. I would have to say, yes, that's great, but then
They got caught up in it and got out of control.
Yes.
An entire arc full of filler. Does anyone else remember that one?
Yeah, they've had a lot of those filler arcs, I think. But let's move on to anime that we've watched since the last time we met. That was about 3 weeks ago when we recorded our episode about Gurren Lagann. For me personally, I've been watching some Baccano, getting ready for the episode we'll be recording next week. Really enjoying the series. More than halfway through it now. And I also watched the Gurren Lagann movie while I was at a little anime screening, as well as little excerpts from Castle in the Sky and Howl's Moving Castle.
Okay. And don't forget, Alex, that me and you watched the fourth One Piece movie last night.
Yeah, that was just last night. I almost forgot about that. I'm a big One Piece fan, but I haven't really watched a ton of the anime. I'd never seen any of the movies, and this one really was very good.
I mean, it's no Strong World. I mean, I haven't seen Strong World, but for non-canon plot, it did justice. So I guess since I'm talking now, some of the anime I've watched a whole truck full. I finished the 2003 Area 88 TV series, which is a remake of the 1980s OVA Area 88, which I'm going to have to give to you sometime this week, Alex, because, like I said, that OVA, great. New one, full of 3D, CGI, not my thing, and it loses a lot of its tone. Has a different ending, and a lot of new characters who just don't mean a thing. And other things I've watched are Paranora Agent.
Great series.
It was okay. Not my cup of tea. Arrietty, of course, since that's what we're going to review, and the movie called Colorful, which is about this boy. It's about a soul who is taken to heaven and says, you're going to get a second chance at life, and you're going to be put into this boy's body who just tried to commit suicide. And while you're in this boy's body, you need to figure out what ultimate sin did you create, that happened in your former life, and why did this boy commit suicide? And it was a very good film. I really enjoyed it. Beautiful visuals, and other than that, just watched another few episodes of the Skypiea arc of One Piece. So sorry for that all rant.
Are you, Jeremy?
I've been struggling through Baccano.
Oh, not your thing?
Don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't mind a splinter narrative story. It's just it's too splintered for me. I'm not saying, again, it's not bad. It feels like it's going in too many directions at once for me to really enjoy it.
What episode are you on?
I think I'm on 6.
Okay. Here's the thing. When you finish it, by episode 13, because the first bit of the plot is the 13 episodes, and then they do the last 3 episodes, which are kind of their own thing. When you watch in the end, it all makes sense. I know it's really splintered right now, but if you keep going with it, it'll all make sense, and it's like, whoa. That was, for me, it was a masterpiece. I loved the crap out of that anime.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Amy? Have you watched any anime recently?
No.
No, it's a priority.
I'm super behind. I've been dedicating my time to lots of Vita. My major cartoon that I've been watching lately is Futurama. Eric and I have been slowly making our way through that series. I think we're on season 5. So we've been watching through those. We've gotten through all the movies. In the first 4 seasons, we're halfway through season 5.
Nice.
Or near the end of season 5, I think.
All right, cool. If Matt, when you talk, if you could just get a little closer to your microphone.
Okay, that works.
Thank you. For some reason, your mic is really low. But that's technical stuff, and we're here to talk about The Secret World of Arrietty, Studio Ghibli's newest film. It was just released here in American theaters, I believe, on February 17th.
Yep.
Saw it at midnight. Woo!
Yeah, Amy's not the biggest anime fan, but she saw it at midnight, and then
I still got to write that review.
Yeah, how about that? But
get on that. I'm going to be watching you.
I'll just make my comments real quick first. I thought it was a good movie. It wasn't the greatest like story or plot, but it was beautiful animation. I'm a real sucker for those nature shots that Ghibli does.
Oh yeah,
I really like that. What was your guys' overall thoughts?
You take it. Okay. Well, I have to agree with you, Alex. I thought it was good. Not anything more. I mean, the new soundtrack, other than Joe Hisashi for most of the other Ghibli films, was a nice refresher. I really loved hearing a lot of those vocals. I was more interested in the backgrounds of this show. I thought the backgrounds held a lot more detail than necessarily the animation side. And like one thing in that first half hour, and I loved hearing the people in the theater, is they're going, just showing this world, the house, and how they move around the house, and using the little pieces of tape and to climb up it. Love it. I mean, I haven't read the original book, The Borrowers, but I thought it was a good film. Just like we'll talk later, it's probably going to be still in the category of a Ghibli slump.
Slump, yeah.
I love the music. That was magical too. I think the combination of the music and seeing the scenery and the beautiful animation just made the film. I agree that the plot was a little dry. I did actually read the original book a while ago. I did read The Borrowers, which the film is based on, and I love that book. I thought it translated well to film, and I think the way that Studio Ghibli animated it fit the tone of the book. It fit the style of the book. The whole idea of you're seeing these little household items. And I think part of the movie I was just sitting there going, so what did they make that out of? And where did that? Oh, that's that. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I think about it. It is a slower paced movie, but I think by doing that, they really let the world breathe a lot. You know,
they did.
It was more about the world and the environment than the actual plot.
Like that stuff near the beginning where they're just showing like just a normal, a kitchen to us, but it's like this huge, massive world, to the borrowers. I thought that was
even the
really
dollhouse.
Cool.
When they talked about the detail and stuff about that, I thought that was nice. Visually, yeah, the film's good. Just plot. Some issues. They could have done a lot more with Sean when they're both out in the field, and he just kind of info dumps like, spoiler alert here, I'm gonna die, I don't have long to live, blah 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 blah. He just info dumps this, something that could have been broken up. I mean, you already know he's sick and ill, but if they had broken that up a little more in the film, or like the issue with his parents and what's going on there, and why they're divorced, and I think it would have made a better film if they had taken that backstory and did a little more with it.
Right. Well, they had. I suppose they had given hints, before when like he met Arrietty for the first time, by his bedside or whatever.
Yeah,
that he was sick, and that
you
his
can tell that
had problems.
The whole sickly nature of I've got a heart condition, and it's woe is me for that minute of I'm going to tell you all the crap that's wrong with my life.
Right.
Jeremy, you look like you really want to say something, so out with it.
Honestly, I'm one of those people who puts more emphasis on plot than anything else.
I am too.
So the movie just came off as just being all right. I thought it was better than Ponyo. I feel it was... I'm going to offend someone here, but I feel it was better than Howl's Moving Castle.
I could see that direction, just because Howl's Moving Castle tries to go a little too everywhere and doesn't focus on...
anything.
I wouldn't say anything, but I would say if you had to choose which world breathes more as far as setting, Arrietty makes the world feel a lot more... real.
The other problem I had with Arrietty was this is something we'll discuss in here in a little while, but there's a couple plot holes in that movie.
Okay.
there's one that's really big, and you're not gonna be able to ignore it, at least.
In How or Arrietty?
Arrietty.
Okay, I'm curious to hear these.
But aside from that, it's not a bad movie. I would totally suggest watching it. It's all right.
Would you recommend it to someone who's not a Ghibli person, who's not really seen anime? Because
no, I would not. In this case, I would not.
When I went to see it, I had that experience. I had two people come and join us in the theater, and they were actually really kind of disappointed with the ending because they thought, oh, they'll live in the dollhouse, or they were waiting for something, but they just
I was
left.
disappointed in that ending, and I actually
Speaking of
I know the story.
Speaking of the ending, I have no problem showing some extra clips after the credits, but don't do what they did
with the whole credits being
yes, thank you. That was sneaky and underhanded. If I want to know who animated it, if I want to know who did the voices, I'll sit there and wait. I don't want to have.
Well, the one thing that bothered me with that is if you noticed, it seemed like when Disney translated, 'cause I love to see the translated stuff of, which studio did this. All it was a text dump of the Japanese people. It didn't really, unless it was in the beginning of the film opening credits, it didn't tell you, who did this animation here, or not necessarily specific, but, art director or just specific roles that these people played. It was just, here's a list of people, alphabetical order, here's a list of studios, alphabetical order, the end. I didn't appreciate that.
Yeah. I don't know. I sort of like it when, they give you something to stick around to see the credits for, but I do agree that this film, it seemed like it sort of, it didn't quite end, and they could have, ended it, right at that last shot, when they're floating down the river, and then, started the credits there, and, kept that little shot of the...
Compared it, I would have to take to Ponyo. The one thing I really loved about Ponyo's credits is it actually put a little image, since Ponyo was all hand-drawn animation. It would, show, the whale. It would show you the little boat. It would just show you all the little objects here, in a little box, and then tell you who animated that. And I thought that was genius for that film. But that's just me.
Yes, our animator guy here. What did you guys think of the voice acting? There were a couple of famous people.
Some really big names.
Will Arnett did the dad.
That's who that was.
Amy Poehler was the mom.
Yeah.
Which made... Of all the characters, I think the mom was one of my favorite because she was just so frazzled, so over the top that she was a humorous character.
Yeah.
She really was.
And don't forget Hana.
Yeah.
Hana was the best.
Yeah.
She's my favorite. She's my
Who's her voice actor? I know it's a comedian.
Hana is Carol Burnett. Yeah. Well, Jeremy and I actually went and saw it together, and when Hana comes in close, the camera makes those creepy faces.
Yes.
Her face was the funniest.
Frog lady.
She was the funniest thing in that movie.
No, she was by far my favorite part of the entire movie. I'm not, again, it's not that the rest of the movie was bad. It's just that she definitely outshined everyone because she was such an absolute ham.
Yeah.
The only voice actor I can honestly say I didn't think was that good was the one they picked for Shane.
Shane.
I'm sorry, he's just that much of a...
Yeah.
Well, here's...
David
Hurney is his name.
Yeah.
I know. I thought he did it was a good performance, but I thought it was interesting because I Wikipedia'd it, and
He's that guy?
Who is he?
He's the brother in Wizards of Waverly Place.
Which one?
Really?
The older brother or the younger one?
I believe the older one.
Really?
Okay. Interesting.
He was in How I Met Your Mother. He appeared in
a
handful of episodes. Wizard of Waverly Place, Secret World of Arrietty.
Nothing much else. It's like the main actor for Arrietty.
There's a lot of Disney stuff.
It's
which
Disney.
makes sense.
They're trying to take the Disney actors in.
They're squeezing them for all their worth before they throw them away.
Well, that's what they did with Ponyo. They took a lot of those,
one of the 18 Jonas brothers.
Yeah.
They took what's her name? One of Billy Ray's children.
Which I don't necessarily like because if you look at a lot of the older Ghibli films that they dubbed, they actually took professional actors for all of them. Like Mark Hamill to play the villain in
Castle in the
Sky,
yeah.
Which I love the fact that they took these big name people and put them for a Ghibli film. I love that. So you're not hearing the same voice actors you hear in the animation.
I know.
Yeah, so you got to remember though they did that with one of their movies, and we all remember Liam Nielsen's performance in Ponyo.
I don't know. I think I don't usually hear, their voices coming out of the Ghibli characters and be like, oh, that's such and such. It has to be really obvious, like Liam Neeson. I immediately recognized him when he was in Ponyo. I thought it was interesting because I looked on Wikipedia, and apparently Sean the kid is supposed to be 12 years old, but his voice seems a little old for a 12-year-old.
He was too old for that character.
Definitely.
It's just like the same thing with Yoko in Gurren Lagann. Yeah, she's
14.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to bring this up on our other podcast, but I looked at the soundtrack for that. All the song names are perverted. Like
they're also if you look at the Japanese names, it's about like an 18 word long song title.
I know, but a lot of them are like blah blah blah. Your XXX, and it's like okay, wow. What a title for! I didn't understand why they had to do that for the
guy who was writing the song titles. He was just
he was having fun with it.
They just basically told him to have fun with it.
Yeah, I saw that because conveniently, the people are posting to YouTube these images for the soundtrack for Gurren Lagann. They're all these lovely pictures of Yoko posing to try and get more clicks.
Fan service.
Yeah.
Fan service.
Although I, speaking of. And with Arrietty, I honestly thought that maybe like the kid was gonna die, and of course he didn't in the end. But it definitely did take a little darker tone, for a kids movie with the impending doom.
But
I don't think it was that dark though, because they had the uplifting, whatever, having courage, and they had that moral of if you have courage, you'll survive, you'll get through whatever problems are assailing you.
And Disney wasn't marketing for this for a kids film. Yes, it was thrown in with the kids film stuff because before it showed the theater I went to, they had some kid oriented stuff before the film started. But if you go to talk to Disney, the one thing they wanted this is it's for the people who read the book. That's essentially the audience.
That's why I wanted to see it. Let's be honest. Well, that and my roommate from last year is a huge Studio Ghibli fan. So when we saw this was coming out, she's like, "We're all going," which is how I ended up seeing it at midnight.
Honestly, I think my biggest gripe with the character of Sean. I don't know what it was, but he never struck me. Aside from his melodrama about halfway through the movie about how he's going to die, he never actually acts like he's actually sick.
He moves over. I mean, other than when he starts like,
you see him.
He's in real darn good shape.
He's in pretty good shape.
Let's see here.
He goes outside the window and then
he apparently is able to walk on shale shingles in his bare feet. I wouldn't suggest that.
It takes skill.
He's strong enough to literally rip apart the borrower's home with his bare hands, and all he needs is a crowbar to get at it in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Sean was an interesting character because you mentioned that bit about him, finding the borrower's home place, and that, like you talked about plot holes, that was the big one for me. How did he know?
How did he figure that one? Did he just magically know?
Now that I think about it, I didn't think when I watched the film initially, that never really dawned upon me. Oh, how did he find that? But now that you're mentioning it, it's like, he must have really went on a treasure hunt.
Same with him leaving the cube of sugar. How did he know to leave it by the drain?
That's another one.
Well, I think he knew that because
he saw it by the plant.
Oh yeah.
That one's almost a giveaway. Although you could almost just say it was a mouse that took it. But honestly, that was another thing that bothered me was the rats. Why introduce them if they're not going to have
anything with the thing? They're just like, I actually, if I had to take a guess, some of these plot holes, I would say they were originally written, but when it came down to crunch, because remember, Miyazaki didn't direct the film. He wrote it and was a producer for it, so he had some say in it, but it might have come down to the director's decision to cut some of those things out.
Yeah,
that's true. And at the same time, they're talking about some of the dangers that this family is facing just in living in a house, and kind of, I think by putting some of that in there, it kind of senses, there are other threats out there, but the biggest one is
the humans.
The humans.
Right.
Or supposedly.
In the dub, they're not called human beings. If you notice,
human beings. That's from the book.
Okay,
because they don't really know they're humans. But they must have misheard at some point. It's kind of this twist when they're learning about this other species, they didn't know what to call them, but they heard them call themselves that. And
Speaking of which, that actually brings up a point, at least for me. How is it the father became so skilled with metallurgy and wiring and electronics?
Hey, he's cool.
I like the dad.
His name's Pod. I love him.
He's awesome, and he's probably why wasn't he the main character? No offense to Arrietty, but why wasn't he the main character?
That'd have been pretty cool.
I don't know. I thought
he was awesome.
Sean definitely had some problems, but I thought Arrietty was a great main character personally.
No, I'm not saying that she was bad. It's just Pod was better.
Pod was just.
He was cool.
BA.
He was. I loved how they showed him doing that. Like when she was trying to sneak past him and he was doing all that. It's like, whoa! I would love to do that. Or he's got the storeroom once you go up. For all the little stuff he's got to use to sneak around.
He's got the tape and the pins.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and you talk about he's working on that little electric thing. I think it's just like a little plug. Like one of our plugs. And he's just tinkering around with it.
I mean, if they've been around at that dollhouse, it's possible. There's. My grandfather built me a dollhouse when I was a child, and it has all of this electrical stuff. There's little tiny plugs that you plug right into the wall, and you turn it on with a little switch.
Yep. If you, I remember going to Hobby Lobby, way back, and I remember seeing these little, little lights and stuff you would put in a handmade dollhouse, and it's like, oh, that's cool.
That actually brings up another point, though, too. You notice how they have a giant gas burner for their stove? They're under the foundation. How does that work?
I saw it was a flame, wasn't it a constant flame, like a...
Yeah, but how does it work? What is it attached to?
Of course, the chemical engineering majors deconstructing.
At least they explained the water.
Oh yeah, no, that was probably a bigger deal to me. Is how the water got there. It's like, it comes. Okay, I can.
I thought that was actually a really nice, subtle little bit of animation because instead of the water flowing you would expect it to, it was just one drop at a time.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really cute little animation detail, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And personally, one other thing I liked about the film was that, the film played out. Arrietty and Sean have this little relationship going. They become friends over the course of the movie.
And thankfully, it doesn't get creepy.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then they part ways at the end. They basically admit, we can't,
this can't ever be.
This can't be.
Thank God.
Yeah, this can't be. They didn't try to
They didn't try to make it over romantic. It was simply.
It was a friendship.
It wasn't that very horrifying thought that I got in Ponyo between Liam Neeson and.
Or even
I haven't seen Ponyo.
Or even Ponyo and the little boy Sosuke. The fact that they're 5 and she's like, I love Sosuke. And it's like, okay, no kids that age. I mean, they say I love you to anyone they know. Really,
and their teddy bears and their toys.
yeah. But
well, that and Ponyo's fascination with blood and ham is a little creepy. We should do just an episode about Ponyo. There's obviously a lot to talk about here.
Oh yeah, after.
Yeah, I agree with you. We talked a bit earlier though about the music, and I love Joe Hisashi, who's composed most of the music for the other Ghibli films.
Sounding so similar.
Yeah, it's somewhat. I mean, what is the argument?
If you go in Hal's Moving Castle, when Hal's created the tunnel of stuff when he's a bird and Sophie's walking through it trying to find him and she's at the 2 pathways, there's a part in that song and it sounds very dead on to similar to part of the soundtrack of Princess Mononoke. His music's starting to... He's done almost all of Miyazaki's films. Actually, I think he's done all of them. And because of that, his soundtracks are starting to sound pretty similar.
It's like the Tim Burton and what's his name collaboration, where all of Tim Burton's soundtracks sound alike.
That's a different problem entirely.
Danny Elfman.
Danny Elfman, that's what I'm thinking of.
I see. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, man, I remember. The love theme from Star Wars Episode 2. The main sort of theme of that movie.
Across the Stars?
Yeah, Across the Stars. Apparently, I saw this on a episode of the Forcecast, which is a great Star Wars podcast for you out there. Free plug. They did a little fact-finding, and apparently from All Dogs Go to Heaven 2, there's a very similar musical motif in that movie. So it's you can't escape it.
Wow.
That's gonna ruin that. I never care for All Dogs Go to Heaven. That never really appealed to me as a kid. But that's interesting.
Yeah, but no, I believe her name is Cecil Colbert, something like that. She's a French.
Cécile Corbel.
Okay, let's go with that. And so,
Thank you, Wikipedia.
yeah, but she did a great job, I thought, with the soundtrack, with the vocals.
She's French.
Yes.
I will say that about the music in this movie. Unlike Ponyo, which the opening title was, it's obnoxious. It's just obnoxious. The music in this movie, it's not in your face. It's a little. It blends in to like the actual.
But you got to realize the music that was done for Ponyo, the beginning and the ending credits, that was the American version. The Japanese one sounds a lot better. Than
I don't know. That's the thing. That's the song that burned into my skull. Though
it's sickeningly cute, basically.
It tries to be.
Ponyo, Ponyo, fishy in the sea.
All right. But one of the reasons, like when we talked about Princess Mononoke several weeks ago now, I believe that's still probably my favorite Ghibli film. And one of the reasons I love it is because it has all of these, beautiful nature shots. And I think that's where some of my favorite Miyazaki work comes from. And this obviously
Which
wasn't...
film?
In Princess Mononoke.
Okay.
Or even in like Nausicaa or Castle in the Sky, when he has those big sweeping, nature shots. I always think those are really awesome. And this film wasn't directed by Miyazaki, but I think it really captured that spirit because it really focuses on every little detail of like the environments and all like the greens. And,
Well, he wrote it and produced it, so...
Yeah, obviously. And I just thought that was great. Like the animation quality in this is one of the best I think Ghibli's ever done, personally. But
Going back to the relationships thing, just because this is something I want to bring up. Spiller. And
Why do you exist?
Because
Why do you exist?
I don't see, other than the purpose to have them move down the road.
That's the only...
Why is he there?
And even then, he doesn't even do a very good job of it.
No.
Well, obviously, Pod is awesome, so he would have figured out how to he would have carried his entire family there on his back if he had to. He probably could have done it.
He probably could have.
Well, I thought... Yeah, that obviously his main purpose was to do that, but it was also, that's like the real romantic love interest, obviously, for Arrietty.
Except he fails as such.
It's just funny because we were making fun of the ending where he gives Arrietty the berry.
Yeah, that's another question. This takes
Look
place.
what I did!
This takes place in Japan, right?
Yes.
Why is there a Native American-like figure?
Well, that and the other fact is, why do they have raspberries? I didn't think they grew raspberries in Japan. I could be wrong. That and the fact that
Maybe he borrowed them.
Yeah,
They were imported and he borrowed them from a house.
What's with the slightly uncomfortable Native American stereotype?
Yeah.
Well, I saw more as a Tarzan sort of stereotype than...
Yeah, I got...
He's some quote unquote savage character. He's not as refined as the Do we even know the family's last name?
I don't remember.
I don't think it was given.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
If it was maybe those one-liner.
Yeah.
You know what? If it's not, I'm just gonna call them Mick Awesome because that's Pod's last name as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. He's just so like, yeah, I can carry 3 times my own body weight at any given time. And I can still scale a sheer surface.
What'd you say his name was? Splitter?
Spiller.
Okay. I thought the interactions, obviously we didn't get very much of them, but the interactions
They're the
between...
clocks. The clock family. I'm on it.
Interesting.
Oh, wow,
I thought the interactions between him and like Arrietty when they first met, was sort of a cute, funny, little awkward love moment. I thought that was kind of nice. And then
I can't even talk to her.
Well, I think it was also nice because it showed, there are other borrowers out there, but they live, much harder lives than
Their
they
lives
do.
are very different, yeah.
Dan, speaking of other borrowers, did anyone else find it really creepy when Sean went into that whole thing about, there's fewer and fewer of you every year? It's like, dude, we know you're depressed.
Well, here's the
Don't
thing.
spread it around.
I don't know how he would really know that because wasn't it Pod and Arrietty's mother who were talking about that? I think there's fewer and fewer, less of it. And then Sean just pulls that quote out of thin air. There's fewer and fewer, less of you. It's like,
Where
I don't
are you
know.
finding that?
Honestly, I think that was my biggest problem with Sean is half of his conversation, half the time he talks, it just comes off as a little creepy.
I suppose.
Did you like it when I tore half of your house apart?
Yeah, that was a part that really didn't make sense to me. Like, okay, I get it. He's taking the part of the wall from the dollhouse and putting it in there, but then he like destroys half their house in the process. It's like, why did you do that? What did that serve?
Yeah, he almost was almost like, even if I was doing that, like I played with Legos, you can be delicate with it. I mean, it's not like he's schizophrenic and his arms like, I can't get this in here. But I mean, I don't know. It's just.
Yeah, another little plot hole, I suppose.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a plot hole. It's like, okay, obviously you can't control your hands very well when trying to.
Manual labor is not his thing.
Well, obviously.
I guess not. Although, I know you guys seem to have a bit of a problem with the ending. Personally, that's sort of where I thought it would end, just with them, basically like saying goodbye and them going off. I didn't expect them to go like off and then like this next half of the movie or third of the movie or whatever would be them finding their new home.
No,
it seemed like a natural ending point.
No, that
I
was
just
fine.
wish they stayed. That would have made me a little happier.
Let's face it, Hara was gonna get rid of. They thought she lost her flipping mind.
They were gonna ditch her.
Oh yeah, she was. Frog Lady was done. They could have stayed.
They could have, but I think it was a bit more, like sort of more sophisticated storytelling that they didn't, try to say, oh, and now they're going to live in the dollhouse and everything's going to be happily ever after.
But I guess that's not what bothered me as much. I think what really bothered me is that, okay, you guys got a really good point to cut off right here with the pot going down the creek, and you kept going, and you're still going. And, oh my God, stop. Just stop.
And they set up the dollhouse thing. They keep mentioning it. They keep bringing it up. They keep giving the backstory of this dollhouse. If you're going to keep talking about it,
then go with it.
They set it up, but they don't use it.
I know. I think that was
the red herring.
Well, that was mostly, sort of a red herring. Also there to establish the past, like his grandfather or whatever, built the dollhouse, and his grandmother was like all into the borrowers. She thought they existed, and all that. And I was going to say, what was I going to mention? I had a brain fart. That's bad. Whatever. It was something about the ending. Thank you. I guess we'll move on. This is a little segment we haven't been able to do as much in previous segments, but I wanted to sort of tie in what we talk about on the show into something within the anime community at large, where that's like subs versus dubs, fan service, something like that. And for this one, I figured we would talk about sort of two things. One, can any, like, this goes for anime or film in general, can a film be considered, good or great based on, just visuals, even if the plot, isn't as good?
No.
And secondly, is this a recent, Studio Ghibli trend?
Oh, yeah, I want to get into that trend. The Ghibli slump is what I want to call it.
The Ghibli
yes to the
slump.
second question, maybe to the first.
No.
Maybe.
No, I think Avatar proved that. I know it's not an anime example, but I believe Avatar proved that. It's Dances and Wolves with space, better known as Pocahontas in space. I wanted to sing Colors of the Wind the entire movie. It's very pretty, and the plot is terrible.
It was all right for me. Avatar wasn't like the grandest thing in the world, but I remember seeing it in theaters, and I was like, okay.
Yet it still won crap loads of Academy Awards.
Yes, that's because people are sheep.
Well, and it deserved the awards for visual effects. I mean, come on.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
See, now when I tried to watch that film a second time, I could pull it apart. The 3D, I really pulled it apart. Like the first time you see it, it's like, oh wow, this is cool,
beautiful.
And the second time, I was really pulling it apart. Like near the end, there are some really shoddy animation. Like when they're going through the forest, there's just some stuff. It's like it's not up to par with other parts of the film.
See, I'm a person who can't see 3D, so
I'm not even talking
it's
the
wasted
3D.
on me.
I'm just talking like
the CG.
The CG. That's what I'm talking about. It's just that film was handled by over like 6 different CGI studios. And you can just tell, and near the end when they're doing all those different stuff, you can tell when it's going from different place because sometimes the quality's nice and high, some of it's a little lower. I mean, unless you're someone who really studies animation or looks at it like I do.
Yeah, I don't know. For me personally, I would sort of say
about avatars.
Yes, if a film or an anime or whatever has great visuals but a bad story or plot, that doesn't save it at all. I can't get over a bad story. If it's a okay, sort of average, moderate story paired with great visuals,
like Arrietty.
Like Arrietty, or like
I
reviewed Steam Boy several weeks ago, which is a what's his name?
Otomo.
Yes, Otomo, who directed the classic Akira, which I really enjoy. Steam Boy is, it's pretty light on plot. It's pretty predictable.
I thought it was a little predictable, but
well, it's not light on plot. I shouldn't say that. There's actually quite a bit going on, but it was predictable. The characters weren't the most compelling in the world, but the visuals were astounding. The detail of the animation and everything I thought was great. So I gave it a pretty good score on my review. And then obviously the thing you want is great visuals with great story, like the best Ghibli films are.
So do we want to transcend that to the second question then about?
Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
Well, one thing I think a lot of us can look, if you've seen most of Ghibli films, is ever since, if you want to lump Howl's Moving Castle into this or not, ever since 2004, 2006, especially 2006 with the Tales of Earthsea, Ghibli has been in this downward decline of not producing any, at least in my opinion, content that made them who they are. I'm not seeing the content I saw in my Nausicaa or, Castle in the Sky, Whisper of the Heart, just trying to name...
Mononoke.
Porco Rosso, Princess Mononoke.
Spirited Away.
Spirited Away wasn't my favorite, but...
Oh, you're really going to get killed for that, just let you know.
I know. The point I'm...
Wait, quiet down. Can you hear that? That's the sounds of our ratings dropping.
Point is...
What ratings?
Spirited Away was still a very good film, but the point is Ghibli's losing its steam. I mean, the only other film I can look back in Ghibli's catalog and say that was a bad film, at least in my opinion, was Pom Poko, and that's because the raccoons' ball sacks, get bit. Yeah,
it's just too random.
I haven't seen that one.
Don't even.
I can sum it up for you. Raccoons with giant magical testicles fight off lumberers.
What was the reason?
Are we allowed to use this?
We'll find out.
Disney did. What did Disney call them? Disney labeled it somehow, and they got away with it in keeping it under
Tankuni.
Well, no,
Tanuki.
It's a Tanuki, but the fact that they...
I can't believe we're discussing this.
They spun it.
They spun in a direction that's kind of like, okay, you're just trying to make sure that it works. So, but...
I don't know. I think... because I read a little book in preparation for the Princess Mononoke discussion that we had for our first episode, and it had a lot of cool storyboards and pictures from the development of Mononoke, as well as some comments from Miyazaki and stuff about the production. And I think after that was so labor intensive. I mean, it was such a big project. I think Miyazaki sort of moved away from these epic scale sort of movies. We haven't really had one of those since Mononoke.
And then we turn to Arrietty, which is such a small... It takes place in one backyard.
Yeah,
one house.
It's not a scale problem that really bothered me. It's
plot.
It's plot. It's
there.
You can have something in a tiny scale and have an absolutely incredible plot out of it. That's the problem, though.
One of the problems I think the reason Ghibli is having these issues is if you look at the last few films, they're trying to give the directing to the younger people because guess what? Isao Takahata and Hayao Miyazaki, they're not going to be here forever. They've got to, if they want the studio to keep on going, which Miyazaki already said he wanted to make it only for I forget which of his films. It was either Nausicaa or Castle in the Sky. I think it was for Nausicaa because then that's how Ghibli formed after that film was done. But like he said in an interview with CNN, it's like, look, I just wanted to make the studio, make my film, and that was it. Whether the studio continued or not, I didn't care. And I guess that I don't know how he views the studio now, but the studio is obviously trying to get new people out there, trying to get them to take up the arms of what the studio is, and it's not working so far. Tales of Earthsea, terrible film. I know, Alex, you want to defend that film with all your might, but that film,
okay, don't say that. It's not a good film, but it's not a bad film.
Would you watch it again?
Yeah, I would watch it again.
No,
honestly. Well, I read the books when I was in middle school, and I vaguely remembered them when I was watching it. I know that the plot of the movie itself is actually quite different from the series itself. But I believe, actually, the guy who directed Arrietty is their youngest director ever.
I think so, because the only other Ghibli directors I know that they've had are Whisper of the Heart. That unfortunately, the person who directed that, he died, and that was his only film he was able to do, which is another good film. But I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Jeremy? Like, I know I haven't seen Up on Poppy Hill, which is Goro Miyazaki's second attempt at filmmaking, but from what I read, it's just a generic love story. The animation's not that beautiful. I don't know. You don't like Ponyo. Arrietty's kind of and then you already told me that, Howl's Moving Castle is iffy for you.
That's my biggest problem, though. On a lot of people, I kind of get nasty looks for this, but I look for plot in my movies. It's you can have the greatest visuals in the universe, but don't get me wrong, there are exceptions. If the whole plot of your movie if it's an excuse plot, that's fine. When you're trying to make a serious movie and the plot falls flat on its face, I don't care how pretty your movie is, it's just not that good.
Oh, apparently I just saw this on Amy's Mac. Apparently Miyazaki actually did write the screenplay for from Up on Poppy Hill. I don't know.
Well, I don't.
He did the concept.
I don't. If you ask me personally, I don't think Miyazaki is the best writer. I think he's a terrific director. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But
he wrote Castle in the Sky, though.
Well, yeah.
He wrote Nausicaa.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's written some good stuff, but I think his real talent lies.
The well's gone dry.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
It's not completely much. That's why I'm really looking forward to. I think it's been kind of teased that this is going to be his second film as the sequel to Porco Rosso. And one thing that Ghibli was making comments about was that this was going to be their biggest film they've ever done. It was totaling, as far as cell animation, how many cells it was going to be, more than Princess Mononoke, which was one of their biggest productions. And so I know, like you were saying, Alex, he hasn't done one of these big epic scale things, and I'm hoping maybe Porco Rosso 2, that's going to be his big thing, because right now they were saying it's like a 2.5-hour film. Wow. And Ghibli's not done something that big. I mean, it might get cut.
Mononoke is pretty long.
That's like a 2-hour film, but they've never gone. Usually, once you get past 2 hours, you start losing your.
You start losing audience, yeah.
Unless, of course, you're Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Lord of the Rings,
or one of the Godfather movies.
Pretty sure I took a nap during Lord of the Rings at one point in time, but then again, I tried to marathon them all in one day. So
that's like trying to marathon the Star Wars movies. Just don't.
We made it through the first two. Third one hit. We decided to save that for another day.
I don't know. Personally, I love Spirited Away. My sisters really love Howl's Moving Castle. I'm not I don't think it's one of Ghibli's greats or anything, but I think it's a good movie. Solid movie. And Tales of Earthsea, it's okay. Ponyo, also sort of okay to good. It's a. Like you say,
for children.
My favorite Ghibli movies are these ones that are more epic in scale, like Castle in the Sky, like Princess Mononoke, like Nausicaa. So I would love to see Ghibli go back to that. But on the other hand, these current films that they're putting out, they're not of the quality of their older stuff that we named, but they're still good movies.
I'm trying to think of what I've seen. I've seen Kiki's Delivery Service.
Oh, that's a good one.
I've seen Nausicaa. I've seen Princess Mononoke. I've seen Spirited Away.
That's interesting.
No, I haven't seen Spirited Away. I've seen Howl.
Now, that's interesting that you mentioned Kiki's Delivery Service, because I saw most of that film just a couple months ago, because I hadn't seen it before, and I know it's one of their more highly rated films. And that's another film that doesn't really have a whole lot of plot. It just very much a character study of just the one.
Gave that film a good pass.
So you think if they want to do a character centric sort of a film, they need to focus on one or two characters rather than.
And I think that's where they might have failed with Arrietty, is because it either needed to be a great story or really focusing on a relationship or a character. You want it to focus on Arrietty, but it doesn't quite work.
Yeah, it sort of divides its attention, I suppose, between Arrietty and Sean, which I think it still does it
was
well.
Doable, but I don't think they executed it perfectly.
See, and that's why, I know, I hate to say this, but it's for Miyazaki, when he does pass away, one of the things that I'm really hoping that maybe not Ghibli will get to, I mean, they might or might not, but that his son will do, is actually animate Nausicaa the Valley of the Wind based on the comic. because I know no one here has seen the comic, but the comic is so much better. I would actually bring it into anyone who's interested after.
Miyazaki wrote the comic.
Yes,
to IMDb,
yes. He drew it. He wrote it, and he made the film while it was still in. He was still doing the comic. But if anyone would be interested in, I would really recommend reading that manga. It's hard to come by nowadays, but the story behind it is so different. The characters are different. Like, what was the princess in that film?
You mean not the main character? You mean?
No.
Filling time here. I don't know. The problem, though, it seems like I haven't read the manga, so I don't know. But it seems like how could you present an entire or squeeze that entire manga down into a movie, when it's already sort of been done before, with the original Nausicaa film.
It's different enough that you could go back and animate that whole comic. I would really it's so much darker. It goes into a lot of philosophy. Just Nausicaa's put at her edge a little bit in the film, when she holds the gun up and she's threatening to kill the guys, leave us alone. I'm taking this baby Ohm back to its mother. The comic goes very dark, like really dark depression. It just covers a lot more emotion that I think that the film cannot do, and I know there's a lot of people say, "Oh, that film's so great." When you compare it to the comic, it's not.
Well, I haven't read the manga, so I can't say. I would like to read it at some point when I'm not as busy as I am now. Although
after spring
it's
quarter.
interesting you say that because personally, I think Nausicaa is quite a dark film. This whole impending apocalypse thing. The whole valley is getting destroyed. Nausicaa herself nearly dies several times.
Is that like Miyazaki's favorite thing?
Death.
No, impending apocalypse.
He likes very environmental or
yes, very big on the environment.
Yeah.
Totoro.
But in that case, though, still, I don't understand what's up with the moon coming crashing into the earth during Ponyo.
He just wanted, he wanted to make it more than just a love story of two 5-year-olds.
Doesn't that explain why the sea was rising?
Yes, it does, but it's never explained why it's coming down. It's never explained why
How does the ocean guy control the moon? Who knows?
Yeah, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but yeah, I think overall, we all agree that we'd like to see Ghibli sort of move away from this smaller scale movie and moving into a larger story, focus more on the story and, multiple characters and epic tales and all that. So we're just about near the end here. What are your guys' final thoughts on Arrietty? Any ideas? I guess I'll go first. I think, based on what I'm hearing, I think I might have liked it more than the rest of you. Personally, it certainly wasn't Ghibli's best movie by any stretch of the means. It's not one of their greats, but it's a good movie, a solid Ghibli movie, I think. And I think I'm looking forward to see what this young director guy does in the future. I thought that it was a small plot, but they sort of let it be a more slow-paced thing to let the world breathe. I think, like Amy said near the beginning, the world itself, from the borrower's perspective, really was the centerpiece of the whole movie for me. Mm-hmm. And it just sort of follows that story and then to its logical conclusion, near the end, and they go their separate ways and they never see him again, But I think that was a nice way to end it. And beautiful music, beautiful imagery, good movie.
I mean, for me, I enjoyed the movie. Yes, I thought that there were some plot things that needed fixing. But I think the way I put it when I walked out of the theater was, it was adorable. It was fun. It was cute. It was beautiful. But it had this very playful quality to it. Especially with the environment that was there. It's just kind of looking at how that environment was. You just kind of enjoyed watching. I don't think that the plot kind of made it. I think just the fact that you were just looking at this beautiful environment just made that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I agree with you, Alex. It'll be interesting to see what this director pulls out of his hat if he gets a chance to direct another Ghibli film. judging by Arrietty's success, I mean, it's not a huge success, but a success nonetheless for Ghibli, and I think it'll be interesting to see what he comes out with. I'm more curious though to see what Sao Takahata, one of the one of the two main people who work at Ghibli, even though he hasn't made a film in years, he's supposedly in action. He's trying to come up with something. He's tired of sitting in the background.
Now, here's maybe a question you can answer, because I believe their last film before Arrietty and On Poppy Hill was Ponyo, and that was like a 2008 film. So it seems like they have these gaps, and then they come out with two films, in relatively close proximity, and then they'll have a gap, and then maybe
I don't think that's true. I think the Up on Poppy Hill came out, I want to say, a year ago.
Well, when did Arrietty come out then?
Oh, yeah, we're going to need IMDb.
I don't know.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, Arrietty came out quite a while ago in Japan, I believe.
Yes. I'd have to probably say maybe because maybe not as big of a budget. I mean, I know from Up on Poppy Hill, it is not the best visual work they have done. It's a lot of watercolor backgrounds, I've heard. So
Up on Poppy Hill was last year.
So that was last year, 2011.
Interesting. Yeah, see, that's what I thought. Up on Poppy Hill was more recent, actually, and then Arrietty came out maybe 2010, I want to say, in Japan.
But I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen that film, so I can't completely give an accurate, this is the true stuff, but I'm looking forward to see when Disney does bring it out. I mean, it'll probably be another year or two before Disney does, just because it's usually that 2-year time lag. Because when did Arrietty come? 2010, and it's 2012, so it's about a 2-year lag behind that we get films from Ghibli. So 3 for Tales of Earthsea.
Oh, was it really?
Because a Sci-Fi Channel or some TV channel had the rights to do that, so they had to wait till the copyright on that or the licensing died on that before they could bring the film over here. That's why it was done in the UK first.
Interesting. This was done in the UK first, too.
Yeah, but that's probably because the UK got their hands on it and they could come out with a dub quicker. And
I guess so. Jeremy, what are your final thoughts on Arrietty?
It was all right. Honestly, it was a very pretty movie, sounded very nice, but it was just all right. However, given that this, as you guys have said, this was the director's, his first time at bat.
Would you want to see something here?
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
And would you rewatch this film?
Would I rewatch it? Yes.
After some time?
After some time. I don't really want to see it again in the theaters. I wouldn't really suggest it to anyone who's, not a really big into anime. I would suggest that, people who are fans of Miyazaki, people who are fans of Studio Ghibli, I would suggest it to them. Just try not to have too many expectations going into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say definitely if you're a Studio Ghibli fan, go see it. But even if you enjoy like Disney animation or other animation in general, I would say go see this movie, because if you like animation, you'll have to appreciate.
Well, you got to realize this is an anime podcast, so practically everyone who's listening to this is going to go see this.
All right.
We're not trying to convince. I don't know, unless someone randomly found this and wants to.
Yeah, you never know. We may have mysterious listeners out in the great beyond.
I'll force my family to listen.
All right, awesome. Well, it sounds like we're near the end of the show. If you guys recall, on our last episode, we talked about watching Bakano, and today we're talking about Arrietty. So, if you're confused about that, that's because we're going to be recording an episode on Bakano next week, hopefully.
Yay.
Yeah, Jeremy sounds excited.
Hey, that thing is a recent masterpiece. I love Bakano.
Well, we'll get a chance to talk about it next week. We should hopefully have Mark and Keith on
Wait
again.
till you finish it before you give a review.
Amy, thank you very much for being our guest on this
Pleasure
special
to be
episode.
here.
Yes, thank you.
All right. If you enjoyed the show, you can email us at techheads@avwproductions.com. You can follow Techheads on Twitter at techheadsou. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm Darth Schmitz. Amy, what's yours?
You can find me at AE Brighter.
Matt?
Can't find me yet. I actually had to talk to you guys about the... I got a Twitter name idea, and I'll talk to you guys after the podcast.
Very cool. Jeremy?
The world will end if Jeremy.
Oh, that's right.
Say the world will end. Reality, as we know it, will collapse in on itself.
Close enough.
That's even worse.
Precisely.
Yep. And please download our podcast on iTunes, rate, review, give us good comments.
Check out our other podcasts.
Yes,
There's more coming.
We have a video game podcast called Broken Controllers, a PlayStation podcast.
I'm the host of Shattered Discs, our movie and music podcast.
And you did a recent Disney movie.
We're going to have one coming up in the next couple days on Disney movies, the Disney Renaissance, so the films of the early 90s.
Yeah, so animation fans like you guys out there should enjoy
Come
that.
back.
Yeah, we have a tech podcast. We have even a League of Legends podcast now. So the podcast network is expanding.
Woo!
All right.
So we control all your podcasts.
You can also check out our website, avwproductions.com. Just look for Tech Heads. We have a blog that runs. We also do video content, which we're going to be shooting a show this weekend, which we're really excited to get started on, called Bits and Bytes. So you can always check that out, too.
All right. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Alex Schmitz for Shredded Cels, and we will see you guys later.
Woo!
I love Totodile so much. Mark, when did you get here?
This product is copyright AVW Productions 2012.